better.
Things are already better.
Already better.
For the Lord is on our side. Things are already better. They are already better. They are already better. Yes.
Wonderful rendition of a message we can all agree on and relate to. Hello there, I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson, welcoming you to another Sunday edition of Jamaica Magazine. So glad you could join us. We have a fantastic show lined up just for you, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. A magnitude 4.6 earthquake was felt across several parishes on April 15. Since then, several tremors and aftershocks have been felt in the Caribbean basin. On Get the Facts this week, we share the government's comprehensive earthquake mitigation program.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. In light of more frequent earthquakes across the world and in the Caribbean region, Jamaica is undertaking a comprehensive program to reduce the risks if one should occur here. The program will also give greater attention to earthquake monitoring and research in response to seismic hazards and their impact. And this process involves various state agencies led by the Office of the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. In this first segment, we'll be speaking with Scientific Officer of the Earthquake Unit at the University of the West Indies, Carleen Black. Welcome to the program, Ms. Black.
Hello, thank you for having me.
All right, let's jump right into getting the facts. Tell me quickly, the Earthquake Unit, what do you do?
Well, we're the agency with the sole responsibility for earthquake monitoring and research in Jamaica.
Right.
And although we're part of the university, we are independently funded through a grant by the government of Jamaica. So we're annexed to the Ministry of Mining and Transport.
Got it. Monitoring and alerts, you had mentioned? Research. Yes. All right. Well, I want to talk about that alert aspect, because is there an element of the earthquake unit where you put out the information?
Yes, when we have a felt earthquake, so persons would have called in to say they experienced an earthquake,
right.
We would then issue a bulletin with the details of that earthquake to the ODPEM and as well as the media and other government agencies.
Oh, okay. So how does that process work? You mentioned someone calls in, and what measurements do you take, and then how do you disseminate the information?
Okay, we have a network of stations across the island with seismographs to detect the earthquakes.
Right.
And this information is streamed to us either via the internet or radio waves. And so when they come into us at the UWI, we are then able to discern what part of that data stream is an earthquake and get solutions for that. When persons call, whether it's the ODPEM or the radio station, to say they felt an earthquake, they in turn would contact us, and we would then process that particular earthquake and send out the information.
So you're the people who tells us if it was or it wasn't.
Right.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, it feels as if there have been quite a few earthquakes in the last 3 or so years. Is that just me, or is that a fact?
No, it's you think, many people think that there are more earthquakes happening, but what's happened is that we have more technology to pass information on. So the slightest earthquake anywhere, the whole world knows about it immediately.
Right.
Whereas in the past, it would have to be something very big and devastating for it to be global news.
Right. So talk to me about the Caribbean region. What's happening in our region in regards to earthquakes and seismic activity?
Well, our region is very special. We are a plate in and of ourselves.
Right.
And we're sandwiched between North American plate and South American plate. And what's happening is that Jamaica, Haiti, and Cuba are part of the northern boundaries. And we have a further complication with a microplate, the Gonaïves microplate, which you have heard about the Enriquillo planting garden fault system that goes
Yes, I
to
have.
Haiti.
Right.
So that system is a part of the southern boundary. So we're not just close to the boundary; we're a part of the boundary.
That sounds like a big mishmash of tectonic activity we're
Right.
sitting either close to or right on.
Right.
Interesting. So are you detecting any greater frequency of activities over the last few years in our region?
Not greater frequency. Well, in the case of Haiti, because they had that major earthquake in 2010,
Right.
you find that it will take time for things to settle down. So we have noticed that over the years since then, they have been having moderate to large earthquakes.
Oh, understood.
You know, so it's going to take a little time for things to settle down for them. But it's not that it has increased overall.
It's interesting that you mentioned take a little time to settle down. I've never thought of tectonic activity like that. But just recently, a few days ago, we had it was 4.6
Yes.
over in the St. Thomas side of the
Right. As a
island.
matter of fact, it was a part of based on our location, it would have been part on the planting garden fault or very close to it.
Do we need to make preparations? Do Jamaicans need to be thinking more about earthquake preparations now?
Oh, yes, we do, because like I said, we're not close to a plate boundary. We're a part of the plate boundary. And fortunately for us, we have moderate motion. It's a transform fault, so the plates are simply sliding past each other. They're not fighting each other to,
Right.
dominate. So we don't get the big earthquakes that you would see in countries such as Japan, but we do get them from time to time. It's just that it takes a very long time for us to get them. So most years, at most, we'll get a magnitude 4, maybe every 10 years or so a magnitude 5. But the really, say a 6 or a 7, it takes quite a long time. So we always have to be prepared because we never know when it's going to come.
I'll tell you what you said a while ago. It's very reassuring. But what sort of preparations should we be looking at?
Well, in terms of your buildings, you should be following the building code because that will tell you where you can build, and if there are problems with the area you're building, how to make corrections for that. It will tell you how to build your walls, how much steel to put in, the separation, all that information. You need to adhere to it because that is what's going to assist your building to withstand the earthquake, because it doesn't necessarily have to not be damaged, but it should not harm you. You know, it should be able to withstand the earthquake so that after the earthquake you have a chance, you and your family can get out.
Understood. And that's really the main concern.
Right.
Preservation of life and infrastructure.
Exactly.
All right, I think we have just a minute left, and I wanted to ask you about response times and mechanisms. How quickly can we expect the unit to push these alerts out?
Well, when all things are equal, we are able to do it in, say, half an hour.
Right.
But what happens is that we have a very small staff complement, so we don't have a 24-hour service. So if anything happens after work hours or on the weekend, pending no internet difficulties, we would then have to commute to the earthquake unit to get the information processed and sent out.
Understood.
But we're hoping to be able to do things remotely, but we're gonna need the internet and that sort of thing to withstand the earthquake.
Got you. And always the watchword is preparation, even as we have gotten the facts about what's happening in our region right now. We're going to close out this segment with Scientific Officer of the Earthquake Unit at the University of the West Indies, Carleen Black, and when we return, the conversation will look at response measures by the Jamaica Fire Brigade. Please stay with us.
The powers that are given to us under the state of public emergency are on top of all of the other law enforcement things we do. So Operation Relentless continues. In certain spaces where violence is significant, we add in emergency powers on top of that. The combination of all of that gives us the results we need. The state of emergency allows us to impact the people who intelligence says are doing violence.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We are still looking at Jamaica's response capacity in the event of an earthquake. The spotlight is now on the Jamaica Fire Brigade. Our guest is Public Relations Officer of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, JFB, Emilio Ebanks. Welcome to the program, Mr. Ebanks.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, we're aware of the Fire Brigade's response in terms of, well, fire and other activities like that, but not quite aware of how the JFB responds in the event of a serious earthquake.
All right. The Jamaica Fire Brigade is the main emergency response agency in the island.
Right.
So what that means, secondary to every earthquake, once you have it going over a certain magnitude, you expect certain things. Mm-hmm. One of those things is a building will crumble or buildings will crumble. From that, you have response in search and rescue taking place. Right. Or some buildings in Jamaica, we have gas lines being run internally. We might not have them along the streets, right? But certainly the larger buildings, if we look at a hotel, for example, the larger hotels, they will have their gas at another point outside of the building, and then it is piped inside to the different kitchens and kitchenettes.
So potential rupture.
Potential rupture, and once you have any kind of crumbling of buildings, then you know you'll have arcing and sparking taking place. So you have gas lines being ruptured, you have sparking taking place. The next thing that's going to come about is a fire. From earthquakes as well, we would have seen in Port Royal how many years ago, liquefaction taking place.
Right.
So you will have rescue being required there in that kind of situation as well. Also, the shifting of the plates can also cause flooding in different areas. And once you have that kind of situation, then of course the Jamaica Fire Brigade is also the agency that takes care of water rescue, swift water rescue and still water rescue. Bridges go out, for example, persons are on top of the bridges, they collapse, they fall into the different areas that are being bridged.
Right.
The Jamaica Fire Brigade is also the agency that will take care of that search and rescue scenario.
So what would we expect to see in such an event?
Right.
How would we see you deploy?
Once we start getting the calls into us, then we move out immediately with the closest station. And the closest station in this particular case, because of road conditions, might not be the one that is closest to where you are and the one you're accustomed to.
Understood.
So let's use, God forbid, here. The closest station would be Halfway Tree. Right. But if the roads between this area here and Halfway Tree station is inundated, then you might have to look at one coming in from Trenchtown.
Right.
So persons have to take all of these things in mind. So once the alert comes into the fire brigade that the services are needed at X point, again, the closest available station is sent out within a minute. And once a station is deployed, then information will be fed back to the station to say, all right, we are on location or we are experiencing difficulty at this point can you alert another station to send another one out? So all of these things are going on simultaneously. And of course, there are other places that we are speaking to as well, different government agencies to assist us, because if a road is inundated for any reason, then we're going to need heavy equipment to assist us to get past those areas. So but all of these things are working together.
Well, before we talk about the agencies, I'm going to ask you about that. What's the team's level of preparedness? You gave me the 1 minute reaction time a while ago. Talk to me. Equipment, you mentioned a variety of scenarios. You mentioned water, you mentioned buildings collapsing, you mentioned dealing with fire. Is the JFB equipped in all these areas?
All of these areas. In all my years in the fire brigade, I have never seen the fire brigade with this level of preparedness. Over the last 2 years, we would have gotten over 30 new fire units. Those units mean that each station in the fire brigade has 2 units.
All right.
Or in the event that you have a unit at one station and that unit is down within an hour or less, you can get a reserve unit into that station. So and remember, all of these units come equipped to deal with different scenarios. They are not just firefighting units.
Right.
They have rescue equipment on them, they have cutting equipment, and then of course they can do the regular firefighting. However, in the event of an earthquake, specialized units will have to move in. So we have specialized equipment that are housed at certain areas right across the island so they can move in. And again, we have to take into consideration road conditions.
Yes.
We have also swift water and still water rescue teams. We have fireboat stations in St. Anne, we have in Kingston, we have in St. James. So those boats can go around and outside of Jamaica and also access areas. And these boats, they have firefighting capabilities as well. They have rescue capabilities as well. So once they can access an area and they can come in, then the team can move in and do searching and rescue on land, and they can also do firefighting on land as well. So they can stay in the water, pump the water from out there and do firefighting on land as well.
It sounds like I don't need to ask about the team's training any at all. So I won't.
All right.
I won't. Well, let's talk about the agencies that the JFP works with now. You mentioned heavy equipment might be needed. It's a multi-agency response in an event like this. What are some of the agencies that you work with?
The first agency that we would contact, or would contact us in this case, depending on who calls first, is the ODPM,
right,
Office of the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. They would then take a coordinating role in that. We also work with the National Works Agency. We have to work with the police. We have to work with the Army as well. And there are also other groups out there that are trained in the community. And over the years, we have trained a lot of community persons. Again, we've worked with the ODPM and the SDC as well.
Right.
And we've done a lot of community training in search and rescue, light search and rescue. So there are persons out there in these communities that are trained to start light search and rescue in the event that something should take place. So they can start, and then when the Jamaica Fire Brigade gets in, working with all these other agencies, then we can pick up from where they have started and continue the situation.
That sparks my interest. I had not meant to ask about this, but when you mentioned start, these trained personnel start in terms of identifying where people are while the experts take over.
Right.
Okay.
So they will start in terms of, as you said, identifying. They will also know the marks to put in to say, all right, we've gone through this area as well, because one of the things you don't want is repetition.
Right.
So team 1 goes in, and then team 2 did not know that team 1 went to this area already.
Time is
so
wasted.
We're wasting time, and in these kind of scenarios, every minute counts.
Understood.
Every minute.
Well, every minute does count. We are almost out of our minutes, but we will not end this program before I give you a chance to speak to the Jamaican public who is watching and give them, what would you say to the public that's watching now, especially in light of just the other day? We had a little earthquake. People are thinking about it now.
Right.
Address all of yours, please.
In the event of any kind of disaster situation, particular earthquakes, you have to remember the ODPM cannot overstress this. The Jamaica Fire Brigade cannot overstress the duck, cover, and hold. We don't want anyone running about whenever they feel a shaking starts. Get into a safe space, duck, cover, and hold. Wait until after the shaking stops. If you see the need to call any one of the disaster response agencies, as the Jamaica Fire Brigade is, then you can go ahead and call your nearest fire station. And I'm going to assume that over the years I've been doing this, I've always been telling persons, you need to know the number for your nearest fire station. If, however, you don't know, or if for some reason, like the cell sites are down, and this is extremely important, if cell sites go down, you can still call 112, and the satellite systems will patch your call through to the Jamaica Fire Brigade. So even without cell sites, with a brand new cell phone that has absolutely no service, you have no SIM card, once you have battery power on that device, you can dial 112 and the call will come through to us.
This has been Get the Facts. What a wealth of information we've gotten today about identifying and sending out the alerts for earthquakes, to what to do and what will be done in the event that an earthquake occurs. Our guests were Scientific Officer of the Earthquake Unit at the University of the West Indies, Caroline Black, in the first segment, and Public Relations Officer of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, JFB, Emilio Ebanks, closing us out.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take good care.
Concerned about uncollected garbage at home? Do you see garbage piling up on the streets? Then report it. Use the National Solid Waste Management Authority's mobile app to report instances of littering, illegal dumping, and uncollected garbage. From anywhere and at any time, be an environment warden by informing the authority of unsightly solid waste. You will be notified when your report has been received by the NSWMA, as well as when the matter is resolved. Download the app from the iOS or Android app stores by typing in NSWMA. Play your part, as Jamaica's beauty is everybody's duty.
Up next, we look at how the ministry responsible for local government and rural development will be addressing your needs for the 2023-2024 financial year.
Continuing the road to recovery, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has allocated a $20.56 billion budget to support its undertakings in the 2023-2024 financial year. Of that, the overall total, $2.2 billion, will be used to fund 2 capital projects, while the remaining $18.35 billion is from the recurrent budget. That money will be used to support the poor, homeless and elderly, improve fire and waste management services, cover disaster mitigation and management, maintain parochial roads, and get water and electricity to more rural communities, among other critical interventions.
The ministry will strategically execute plans and programs around these priority areas within the context of the resources available.
As part of a $2.3 billion allocation, the Board of Supervision is in receipt of operational support to the sum of $1.06 billion. This will fund outdoor poor relief services and the Denham Town and Vineyard Town Golden Age homes, and provide social housing and poor relief services in communities. The upgrading and optimal operation of the island's infirmaries will continue with a $977.5 million budget. $126 million will fund initiatives for the protection and care of the homeless, including $31.94 million for the construction of a drop-in center. Local authorities or municipal corporations through which the ministry carries out many of its core functions within communities will be receiving $2.87 billion in operational support. And the Social Development Commission will continue its community and social services with $1.6 billion at its disposal. Rural development is another major priority for the ministry. The newly established Rural Electrification and House Wiring Branch expects to spend $316.47 million getting more Jamaicans connected to the national grid.
When we do get requests on new programs, it is investigated, and once the space is there, we have accommodated.
Rural communities will also receive help from $280 million set aside to continue the rainwater harvesting in schools project and the rehabilitation of catchment tanks island-wide, along with the provision of water supply systems. The Rural Water Supply Limited is also receiving $272.45 million to continue its work. And to ensure easier connectivity within and to rural communities, $155 million will provide emergency repairs to parochial roads on a priority basis. As a small island state, Jamaica is vulnerable to natural disasters that could significantly derail the country's national development. So, in this fiscal year, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development's single largest expenditure is $9.1 billion for disaster preparedness, mitigation, and response. The biggest portion of that, $8.59 billion is for fire and rescue services. This includes $194.5 million for repairs and maintenance of select fire stations and $248.55 million to procure critical firefighting equipment. There is also $88.8 million for repairs and maintenance of fire vehicles and $70.7 million to repair and maintain fire hydrants. The main agency with oversight of disaster mitigation is ODPEM, and the entity is getting an operational budget of $539.8 million to carry out its duties. An added $360 million is allocated under the capital budget to continue a project for developing a national emergency communication system. This system is to coordinate incident response among the various critical agencies of government and volunteers. Among this year's targets are the installation of telecommunications equipment. 5 new repeater huts will be constructed. These are essentially base stations that extend the range of radios for communication between different disaster coordination sites. Siren towers or MATs will also be constructed in 15 locations across 3 communities: Port Maria, Bogwalk, and Old Harbour Bay. And solar racks will be constructed at Portland Cottage in Clarendon. Another area of priority is solid waste management. As part of an overall budget of $3.24 billion, $1.76 billion is to ensure public cleansing and garbage disposal island-wide. The National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, has also been distributed $1.85 billion for a capital development project to buy 50 compactor trucks. A central plank of the local government ministry's mandate is to provide social support to the poor and vulnerable.
We have been getting substantial assistance from the Ministry of Finance when we call on them. And we are streamlining for the new financial year to have a more effective program.
Vehicle operators must always use safety devices. Helmets and seatbelts are there to make sure you arrive alive, protecting you against injuries and even death. Since the start of the year, far too many road users have died. Some of these could have been prevented if the victims wore helmets or seatbelts. The new Road Traffic Act will fine persons for not wearing their seatbelt or helmet. So, do yourself a favor. Wear your helmet, use your seatbelt, save money, and stay alive.
All of us as Jamaicans are ecstatic and beyond proud of our Reggae girls on this their historic back-to-back qualification for this prestigious tournament. One thing we know, we can rely on the Reggae girls for sure. They will leave their best performance on the field, no matter the reputation of the opponents they face. Our women are fierce. In regard to the support of the government of Jamaica to the Reggae girls, we will be providing a monthly stipend for each member of the squad for their nutrition and other training needs beginning the end of this month.
Reggae girls, you are lead every step by step. You're done with
and this will continue until the World Cup. And this support is valued at $20 million.
We are signing out for today, but not to worry. You can rewatch this offering or other content like this by visiting our website, jis.gov.jm. Do join us again tomorrow on the same station as we bring another informative, educational and entertaining package of Jamaica Magazine.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.